Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much again for joining me here. Hope you're having a phenomenal day. This is our altcoin market analysis. We're going to specifically talk about Bitcoin actually as a foundation because you need to understand how Bitcoin is trading in order to trade altcoins successfully. And as I mentioned yesterday, when we were preparing for the price action pullback here, this was just another fake out. Honestly, we saw a bullish type of pennant breakout for Bitcoin. Everyone FOMO'd into longs, and we were instead taking shorts ourselves. So congrats to our community here for some nice profits on our bonk trade, 42%, and SUI 48%. We've got Ethereum and Bitcoin shorts positions open as well. Those are both in profit with an average position at 3,700 and 120 for Bitcoin. So what I want to talk about here though is altcoin season index. We're going to start with that first. But to clarify, it's important to recognize that there is a significant divergence on XRP. SUI has a pretty awesome cup and handle pattern play out here. We're looking at an entry around 360 if possible. And then Solana, of course, retesting its support range to fill its fair value gap. And obviously Ethereum, just no F's given. We don't really know what's going to happen there, but we're going to take a closer look today and find out. So let's go ahead and start with the obvious here. Let's go with the alt season index. Sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit there. But the important thing here to recognize is that this is still high. It's lower than it was yesterday. Very true. Altcoins are pulling back. Very standard. But I wouldn't be super concerned with the fact that alt season's over or like things are going to be, things are going to hell because we're pulling back for Bitcoin. Until we lose that $116,000 support, there's no reason to consider, running for the hills. It's simple as that. But the truth is we got to be respectful and mindful of the fact that there is still likelihood of price action pulling back because we can see we're at 1.5 2 trillion market cap versus 1.6 a couple of days ago. So the truth is altcoins are starting to secure profits, and you should be too. All right, they're overinflated. There's no reason for us to expect them to go to the metaphorical moon. I'm just being realistic there with you. Okay, now from a market overview, another thing that's super relevant to understand is that Bitcoin had an ETF outflow on Sunday, right? And we see this residual happening now a couple days later. That's typical because every time this happens in the past, we see a manipulative power down and then typically a leg up from there. So in case you missed my analysis from yesterday, just to kind of brush you up to speed here, this is the last time we had an outflow of ETFs. It was June 30th. We can see right here. This is June 30th right there, and the price action pulled back to trap late shorts and then ripped back up and inevitably took way off after that. Okay, so I'm not proposing we're just going to go to the moon here from now because of this, but the truth is, with this the price pulling back the way it is, it's a standard manipulative type of pattern, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is just a very temporary scenario or setback. We are still honoring our ascending trend here for Bitcoin. Why don't we go ahead and start with Bitcoin for the most part? And if you're rolling your eyes wondering why the heck this guy's covering Bitcoin, you probably don't know a lot about trading. No offense, and that's okay. You want to learn, that's why you're here. But the truth is, Bitcoin is like the shot caller. It totally calls all the shots. And if we don't know what's going on with Bitcoin, we don't know what's going on with altcoins for the most part. Now, we got this ascending trend here, just to give you some perspective for Bitcoin. We're still honoring that, and things are looking pretty good here. So we're above all moving averages, etc. So even though we're pulling back, we're holding above our local point of control. That is that $118,000 mark, right? So if you look here, the most amount of volume in this range ever since July 11th is right here at 117.8, basically 118. All right, so we maintain above that. The likelihood of further upside from here is greater. And that's going to be good for altcoins. Speaking of altcoins, let's look at Bitcoin dominance and recognize we do have a pretty significant overextension on the downside. And what this is basically money flowing away from altcoins, money flowing away from Bitcoin going into altcoins. That's why Bitcoin dominance goes down. We went from like 66 to 61% in a few days. That is relevant, this trend line here, just because it's an overall sentiment of how things typically respond. So we saw previously, altcoins did very well back in December, and then Bitcoin started to pump and alts kind of stunned out, and now they started to pump again. All right, we're starting to bottom out here. This isn't necessarily indicative of a reversal for altcoins, but it tells me that we're more likely to find some profit taking in the relative near future as this slowly progresses upwards. Okay, so it's kind of, we're in that little cycle right now. So just kind of friendly advice, be very careful FOMOing into what feels like the top right now. Average in, low position size may be best, but don't put your whole entire bag at like, a $4 SUI trade, right? Don't do that. It's not the smartest call. again, hindsight's 2020. No discredit to you if you did that. I've made plenty of bad calls myself too. Trust me, it happens. But the key takeaway here is we want to take less bad calls and more good ones, right? Less bad, more good. So anyways, let's take a look here at Ethereum to kind of start this off really quick. Just to note, open interest focus or accumulations at 3650. We're currently below that. That's the tentative resistance for ETH. It's pretty obvious, right? Can you see that this kind of almost like this line here, imaginary line? We got the previous high, new low, new high, right? So basically if we see a retest at 3650, that may be a good consideration for a short, especially with liquidation short delta being so high. When this is bright red like it is, we've got $8 billion more in shorts than longs, is an easy way to describe it. And that implies that you don't want to try to take a long against that. That means we need to see at least $8 billion worth of longs entering the market to be able to have this price turn itself around. That's not really good odds, if you ask me. Same thing here as well. We look at the open interest, liquidation heat map. This kind of just gives us a reflection that we have more propensity to go down lower because there's a lot of late longs here entering the market, or previous late longs that have been in the market for the last week. Okay, so jumping over the charts, daily time frame. Simple way to understand it, we're kind of hanging out above our 0.786 fib level. Now that's not like a major amazing level, okay? A lot of people seem to have hard-ons about fib levels being like super amazing and telling. They're watching Elliott Wave Theorist and they're probably getting somewhat lucky. No discredit to them at all, but if you give 15 different possible case scenarios, you're going to be right every time, right? It's just simple as that. So the key takeaway here is that you don't trust one fib level because there's not a lot of confluence here. While we did have somewhat of a local high at 3,500, I think the propensity for further downside for ETH is higher. Once more, volume still remains large. We have a lot of volume, okay? So you don't want to try to, generally speaking, it's not advantageous to short against that. And I know you're probably wondering, wait, you just told me you have an average position at 3,700 on Ethereum. True, yeah, but that's just kind of playing the odds. I'm expecting Bitcoin to pull back and ETH is massively overinflated, and seeing that Bitcoin dominance bounce gives me some confidence in shorting. But the truth is it's generally construed as a higher risk short, so you don't want to try to do that at this moment because we are still above 70 in the RSI. This does imply that you should technically consider securing profits soon or keep your position open on the long if you have one, right? So again, it could continue to run. But truth is, if history is any indication of repeating itself, we are due to taper off our RSI, and if so, then the price action will at the very least go sideways for some time. All right, so that's kind of where we're at. Either way, Ethereum is looking strong. Generally best to just kind of avoid trading this coin. I don't think it's advantageous to even consider a long at this point. It just seems crazy to take a long at this level when everything's still kind of overheated. Okay, that's just me personally. You're gonna hear me say, don't trade often just because that's the best thing to do. Some people fail to recognize that the best traders are those who sit on the sidelines and wait for the best opportunities. But you're going to miss a ton of them if you do that, just so you know. It's the way it goes. So Solana, this is a pretty strong one here. This is the one that I would say is more likely to give you some benefit if you were to consider taking a trade. Let's start with the back-end liquidation so you get perspective on what I mean by that, because we have this significant amount of open interest here at 185 to 178. Okay, so the average there, roughly 180 to say. That's that previous point of control. We have a lot of volume there, essentially. So that reinforces support if we come down much lower. We can also see here liquidation delta it's breaking even at this exact moment. So that basically implies that the price action is more likely to shift momentum and further downside should be expected. However, from a liquidation standpoint, majority of all these local late longs, the ones yesterday that were chiming into my comments, I said, don't take a long just yet. They're the ones getting smashed and hammered right now. Okay. Now, again, it's not a big deal. It doesn't matter really. I mean, people get overly confident in this market, especially behind a electronic wall. But what I can say here is that Solana is one of those coins that it's super strong when it wants to be and kind of dead when it isn't. We're in this potential transition down. So generally speaking, taking a long right at this exact moment may be a bad idea. But once more, it all depends on Bitcoin. I mean, you look at Bitcoin right now, it's rallying back, right? Like hit that little bottom there at 117.3 and just goes right back around. So you can never truly understand what's going to happen next. A lot of this is based on Bitcoin. So under the premise that Bitcoin may pull back a little bit further to C116, then I would say Solana is probably likely to continue down lower to the 177 to 185 support range. Okay, those are my thoughts there. What are yours? Why don't you comment below and let us know? And hey, while you're at it, Jumping over to BitUnix too, folks. Phenomenal exchange, link down below. Check them out. We got volume reward rankings right now, and next month we'll have a deposit reward bonus. But every time you use my link to register, you'll always be eligible for future competition. So it's just kind of like easy money, for lack of better terms. No KYC or VPN, that's the main reason why we use them. So daily time frame, there is a fair value gap as low as 185, which is mostly filled. So I'd say a better case scenario is an entry between 185 and 177. That's a simple way to understand it. If you look at the 4-hour time frame, there are some short-term divergences. We did lose our local overextension area here at 192. So if we close in the low 190s today, I think that we may see a bit more of a correction. Once more, pay attention to Bitcoin. That's really going to be the one that's calling the shots here. Solana will not go down if Bitcoin doesn't go down. That's the key takeaway here. SUI, let's jump on over to SUI. This is a similar one. This one's looking actually quite strong. I sent out a trade alert yesterday mentioning I wanted an entry in between 180 and 190. Sorry, 380 and 390. While that has already happened, that happened when I was sleeping. I wasn't willing to take a blind trade when I expect Bitcoin to pull back. But we can see that these candle wicks to the downside are pretty aggressive. So this coin, however awesome, is subject to manipulation a little bit more so than others. That being said, open interest, heavy concentrations at $4, now $3.95. So that resistance at $4 is still quite heavy. That hasn't changed much at all. We can see liquidation short delta is super high right now, about 500 million. That's generally pretty large for this coin, but we can see that manipulative wick down to sweep all those longs. It's almost perfect how liquidation occurs and just totally destroys people's lives. Just kind of a reminder to stop using it so much, or to minimize your risk and to just play your cards safer. Tighter stop losses at this point are probably a better call. Either way, having said that, the 4-hour time frame for SUI pretty much just reflects that $4, that resistance. We've known this for a while. We have a cup and handle type of pattern here you can see. And if you're not familiar with cup and handles, they generally flag out. In other words, they'll work themselves into a lower high, lower low pattern, kind of manipulating people to trap them into late shorts. And then the price just goes straight up from there, okay? So that's kind of what we're looking at here as a potential reality for this coin. I think the likelihood of going up is still higher. We have a lot of support at 360, but let's look at the macro just to confirm. We're not just, shooting from the hip here, so to speak. Once more, support confluence at this 0.65, 0.618 fib level at 360. I want to reinforce that. Confluence. If you're not familiar with that term, look it up. It's a thing, and it's basically just a term used in trading to confirm there's multiple areas of support or resistance, a lot of confirming factors in the same place. Okay. That being said, it's important to recognize that if we come to that level, the likelihood of holding it's quite high, mainly because we had a local high here that it's kind of been tested as a new low, but really hasn't, honestly, because the price keeps wicking down. So for the most part, with the liquidation heavy above the price action, support heavy below the price, the propensity for this coin to go much lower than 360 is quite low. We may see a candle wick down, of course, a manipulative wave down to sweep some of this lower liquidation. We got $3 and $3.20. That's a possibility. But for the most part, at this point, 360 seems like a logical consideration for entry if that were to happen. So I do have an alert set there. I'm hoping that we see that get triggered. I'm just waiting for a little bit more of a pullback from Bitcoin before I take along with this coin. It just seems a little premature. I hope I'm wrong, the price goes up. I've been wrong plenty of times before, but in this case, it's probably best just to wait and consider securing some profits on the way down if you got a short position open, which we actually did secure profits earlier this morning on our short. All that said, XRP, let's take a look at the back-end liquidation data. Recognize here that we have 325 to 330 as that point of control here locally. People are adding to their positions. And we had a previous area of interest before the price legged up again from 325. So we're in a support range. 325 to 330 is that support. We can see, though, however, you may not see it on the screen. It might be cut off on the bottom a little bit. But the truth is this is it's about 50,000 liquidation short delta. That's not super high. We saw this upwards of 4 billion to the upside, but the key takeaway is we have more shorts than longs in the market, and there's more liquidation between 310 and 320. So I feel like we have a bit of a likelihood of seeing that lower range get hit soon. So that's once more just my thoughts there. Now that we've broken below our support. So once more, 340 is that support. If we close below 340 today, we can presume it'll be the new resistance, and the likelihood of going down from there is greater. That's just kind of how it works. And don't shoot the messenger too, folks. There is a lot of XRP enthusiasts that take full offense to me saying their favorite coin is going to go down. I'm literally just telling you how it is and seeing what it is on the charts here. I don't even care if I was paid by XRP to promote it. I wouldn't sell my soul like you see everyone else. So it's unfortunate and funny to me, but it almost makes me sick to see how ridiculous people are. They'll sell their soul for money, and it's pretty unfortunate. Okay, anyways, we want to look at the 4-hour. Hold on, daily time frame. I want to note this here first. We are right here at 70 on the RSI. This is generally construed as a take profit consideration for a long if you have one. In other words, you waited for the price to continue to run. This hysteria is starting to dissipate, and the price action is pulling back. Not to say the price couldn't still go up, folks. It's not what I'm saying. In fact, we do see a pivot and bounce off this area a lot, but this is an early sign, letting us know that you should, from a pro trader's perspective, more of a macro swing trading perspective, you should consider securing some profit. Don't just let it ride, because we could come down much further. Bear in mind, I think $3 is probably the most immediate bottom, probably not that super substantial. So if you're like a long-term holder, it really doesn't matter. But if you're like, trying to day trade right now, I think a long right now is a bad idea. Once more, we do have kind of a potential pivot off this 327, this previous high, this overextended state. So there's a decent chance we do pivot and bounce from here, but the odds I feel are just tremendously higher that we go lower. It's just that's the feeling I'm getting. And you do develop a feeling too. And I tell you not to trade with emotion. That's not what I'm saying. But the truth is, there is this feels a little different than most pullbacks here, specifically for Bitcoin. And once more, losing all these trend lines and or support ranges, XRP is due to continue a little bit further. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Why don't you comment below, let us know. Keep in mind, there's only 1 week left of the summer sale here for Crypto Cash Premium. I only do this once a year, so if you're going to consider joining, now is a good time. We've found some nice benefits. That does keep in mind, that does lock you into that rate for until you cancel. So just know that that's an option for you. Otherwise, I look forward to working with you. Jump on over to our Twitter, Telegram, Discord. Love to see you over there, and just become a better part of your life, right? That's the whole concept. That's why I'm here, to hopefully help be that good not shoulder to cry on, because that's not what I want to be, but I want to be the logical reason for you to make sound financial decisions. So I hope you find benefit. If so, comment below, like, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. We'll see you in the next one. Have a fantastic rest of your day. Appreciate you out there. We'll see you again soon. Take care.